For 6 years, Daniel Reed had done everything he could to stay invisible. He had changed apartments, jobs, and even his phone number. Not because he was afraid of the police or running from the law, but because he was terrified of one woman, the billionaire CEO who had once been the most important person in his life. He thought he had successfully disappeared forever. Then one rainy Friday night, Daniel walked into a quiet downtown restaurant for a blind date. He looked across the table at the elegant woman sitting there, and his heart stopped. She leaned closer, smiled nervously, and whispered, "You're my blind date." Daniel knew that voice. It was Emily Carter. The woman he had spent 6 years trying to forget. Before we begin this emotional story, make sure you subscribe to Kindness Story, like this video, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more stories about kindness, courage, and second chances. 6 years earlier, Daniel Reed had worked as a maintenance supervisor in one of the buildings owned by Carter Enterprises. He wasn't rich, powerful, or well-connected. He was simply a hard-working single father trying to give his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, a safe and happy life. Daniel's wife had passed away when Lily was only 2 years old. Since then, Daniel had learned to become everything his daughter needed: a father, a cook, a homework helper, and sometimes even the person who stayed awake all night when she had a fever. He didn't have much money, but Lily never felt poor. One winter morning, Daniel found an expensive black car parked outside the building. Emily Carter, the CEO herself, had arrived for an important meeting. Everyone became nervous when she walked through the doors. But Daniel noticed something nobody else seemed to notice. Emily looked exhausted. While the executives talked about millions of dollars, Emily quietly rubbed her temples. Daniel didn't know why, but he placed a cup of coffee beside her and said, "You look like you could use this." Emily stared at him. Nobody spoke to her like that. Then she smiled. "Thank you," she said softly. That tiny moment became the beginning of something neither of them expected. Over the next few months, Emily and Daniel started talking. Sometimes they met in the building lobby. Sometimes they crossed paths in the elevator. And sometimes Emily would sit with Daniel during his lunch break while he talked about Lily. Emily had billions of dollars, but Daniel never treated her differently. One evening, Emily asked, "Why don't you ever ask me for anything?" Daniel smiled. "Because kindness isn't a business deal." Those words stayed with her. Emily had spent her entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Investors wanted her money. Business partners wanted her approval. Even some friends wanted access to her world. But Daniel wanted nothing. He simply treated her like a human being. Eventually, Emily met Lily. The little girl immediately loved her. Lily once handed Emily a handmade paper bracelet and said, "It's not expensive, but Daddy says the best gifts don't have to be." Emily almost cried. For the first time in years, she felt like someone had given her something without expecting anything in return. Daniel and Emily became close. But Daniel was afraid. He knew the world Emily lived in. He knew what happened when billionaires dated ordinary people. Newspapers would talk. Business rivals would gossip. People would question his intentions. And Daniel had one more fear. He didn't want Lily to become part of a world where people measured love by money. So when Emily finally admitted she had fallen in love with him, Daniel panicked. "I care about you," he told her. "More than you know. But I can't become another story in your business world." Emily reached for his hand. "You're not a story, Daniel. You're a person I love." But Daniel still walked away. He disappeared from her life. He moved to another city and took a different job. He told Lily that sometimes people loved each other but still needed time apart. Years passed. Emily searched for him, but Daniel had made sure she couldn't find him. Then, one afternoon, Lily discovered an old photograph of Emily. "Dad," she asked, "why did you never tell me what happened?" Daniel looked at the picture for a long moment. "Because I thought I was protecting you." Lily shook her head. "Maybe you were protecting yourself." Those words hit him harder than anything else. Meanwhile, Emily had continued building her company. She became even more successful, but she never forgot Daniel. Then one Friday, Emily's best friend convinced her to try a blind date. "You work too much," her friend said. "Just go. One dinner. Nothing serious." Emily agreed. She had no idea that her friend had secretly arranged the date through a mutual connection. Daniel also agreed to a blind date that same evening. He arrived at the restaurant wearing a simple dark jacket. He was nervous, but he wanted to move forward with his life. Then Emily walked through the door. Daniel froze. Emily stopped too. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then Emily slowly walked toward him. "You're my blind date," she whispered. Daniel almost laughed from disbelief. "Emily?" Her eyes filled with tears. "You disappeared. I thought I was doing the right thing. You broke my heart." Daniel lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry." Emily sat down across from him. For the first few minutes, they said nothing. Then Daniel finally explained everything. He told her he had been afraid of her money, her power, and the attention that came with her name. But most of all, he had been afraid that one day Lily would feel like she didn't belong beside Emily. Emily listened quietly. Then she said something Daniel never expected. "Daniel, I never needed you to belong to my world. I wanted to belong to yours." Daniel looked up. Emily continued, "You taught me that kindness isn't about how much you can give. It's about whether you notice when someone is hurting." Daniel's eyes became wet. "I should have stayed," he whispered. "Yes," Emily said. "You should have." Then she smiled through her tears. "But I'm glad you're here now." At that moment, Daniel realized something important. He had spent 6 years believing he was protecting the people he loved by running away. But sometimes kindness means staying. Sometimes it means being brave enough to tell someone the truth. And sometimes it means giving a second chance to the person who hurt you. Daniel and Emily didn't magically fix everything that night. They talked for hours. They discussed Lily, their fears, their mistakes, and the years they had lost. But when they finally left the restaurant, Emily reached for Daniel's hand. This time, he didn't pull away. Months later, Emily began visiting Lily's school and helping families who were struggling financially. But she never put her name on the donations. When Daniel asked why, she simply said, "Because kindness doesn't need applause." Daniel smiled. He understood exactly what she meant. Their story became a reminder that kindness can cross every boundary: money, status, fear, and even time. You never know what someone is carrying behind their smile. The exhausted stranger beside you may need one kind word. The person who seems successful may secretly feel alone. And the person who made a mistake may simply need one chance to make things right. Daniel thought he had to disappear to protect the people he loved. Instead, he discovered that love sometimes asks you to stay, speak honestly, forgive, and begin again. So if you can be kind today, be kind. Hold the door. Check on a friend. Forgive someone. Give someone hope when they need it most. Because you may never know how deeply one small act of kindness can change a person's life. And sometimes, the kindness you give today becomes the second chance you need tomorrow.